All right, good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. We'll get started as soon as we get the signal from the staff. Looks like we got a quorum. Are you gonna be recused on several?
I'm recused, but
We got Kent, so we'll still have 4.
yeah, but I have a feeling that Aspire is asking for a continuation anyway. That's my understanding. That's the one. That's the real one. And then I'll recuse on the back one, and then I'm back in on the very last one. The agenda change.
the trade
Brian
policy.
speaking on the project.
Morning, Nick. Morning, Brian.
So
Sorry? Today? We've got some. Okay. All right. Staff, looks like we're ready to go. All right, perfect. Good morning, everyone. Welcome Downtown Action Committee hearing, August 9th, 2023. And if we could please start with roll call.
Nick Mielich,
Present.
Roger Jensen,
Present.
Stephen Graham,
Present.
Brian Chagas,
present.
Kim Doe,
Present.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anyone have comments on the minutes in your package, item 2 from July 12th hearing, or a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes approved, July 12th. Thank you. Item 3, report from City Urban Designer. Claudio.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Babin, City Urban Designer. I have 2 items. One of them is the applicant for the DAC case number 2302, which is part of your new cases in this agenda, has asked to continue the case for the next meeting. So I will need a motion for that.
Okay. Someone will make a motion to continue case 23-02.
Motion to continue.
All right, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 2302, move to September. Okay.
One more item. I also would like to inform you that the city is going through a process that is required by the state, is the evaluation and appraisal review of the comprehensive plan. This is asking local governors to evaluate their comprehensive plan and to review if the plan needs any amendments as necessary, and this is done at least once every 7 years. There's a downtown master plan element in this comprehensive plan, and we will be updating and revising it as it describes goals, objectives, and policies. And more about this information, I'm going to hand it over to Alex Hansen, which is the city comprehensive planner.
Claudia, just, I believe that Mr. Chagas has a conflict in 2302. He may not have realized that when he was voting on it, so you may want to ask him to recuse himself and then redo that item.
I apologize.
Okay, so the continuing.
Yes,
Okay.
you're going to need to
So
represent
you're
that.
going to have to do the
vote
motion.
Yeah.
Continuous with Mr. Chagos.
Not a part of it.
Does someone want to remake a motion to move 2302 to
I'll make a
September
motion
hearing?
to continue case number 2302 to the next meeting.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Thank you, and now.
Recontinued. Okay.
Good morning. For the record, Alex Hansen, I'm the city's comprehensive planner. Claudia already provided you some of the information, but we just want to make this committee aware that we are in the middle of the evaluation and appraisal review of the comprehensive plan, which is a statement, or EAR, which is a state mandated process, which requires that every municipality in the state shall review its comprehensive plan to determine whether any updates are necessary. This is a requirement that we have to do it every 7 years. There are state mandated deadlines for each municipality. In the case of West Palm Beach, we are required to transmit or send to the state any proposed changes to the comprehensive plan no later than November 29th of this year. So our expectation is to go to the City Commission for first reading sometime in November, which means that we'll have to go to both the Planning Board as well as Downtown Action Committee in cases for any amendments to the Downtown Master Plan element sometime in September for your September meeting. So we have been coordinating with different departments, reviewing the different elements of the comprehensive plan. For this committee, we'll be bringing any proposed changes to the downtown master plan element, which is one of the 13 elements in the comprehensive plan. As of right now, we do not foresee significant changes to the downtown master plan element. There's an introductory section with some demographic and development information that was updated 7 years ago. We'll need to update some of that information right now, and as well as doing some cleanup of a few other policies. That's what we have identified preliminarily. We're still assessing the different elements, but we just wanted to make you aware that we're going to be coming back to you next month with the proposed changes to the downtown master plan element. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, I know with the time constraint, that's pretty intense schedule. I would assume that you're also reviewing the Live Local Act in combination.
Correct. So the EAR review includes assessment of any statutory changes that have happened over the last 7 years. That includes the Live Local Act, and also change in conditions, new policies and practices. So that is the type of thing that we are reviewing in the entirety of the comprehensive plan. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we are reviewing that.
Any other questions of Alex? Alex, oh, go
I
ahead.
just had a thought. I know there's a few comments made over the years about some cleanup to the downtown master plan. I don't know, with regard to dimensional things and the need to get variances for things. I don't know if that's part of the cleanup or not, but I just recall that from previous meetings that I think there was discussion on if there was an opportunity to tweak a couple things to make maybe things easier in the future for processing or not needing a variance for things. I don't know if that's part of that.
Yeah, we are making the distinction between what is included in the downtown master plan element of the comprehensive plan versus the downtown master plan regulations in the zoning code, which I think relate to some of the things that you are mentioning. So it's kind of two related but separate items.
Understood. Thank you.
I did have a question, and I brought this up in the past. You know, the original DPZ master plan from way back when, the updates from Siskovich and whatever year that was. Is the city reaching out to any other consultants for a peer review and an update of the master plan?
We have not at this point. The review has been mostly working with different city departments to determine what changes we believe will be necessary, and then again, bringing the item in front of the different committees and boards.
Well, I think it'd be worth discussion amongst your staff and the departments to see if it would be beneficial to have a consultant take a look. The ones that envision some of these major master plan components 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Okay.
To look at the current massing and the current zoning and to see, you know, number one, if it's just adhering to the vision. Number two, if there's any tweaks or updates that they would recommend in addition to all of your staff professional advice. So.
And
Just a
again,
thought.
the downtown master plan element for the most part includes a series of goals, objectives, and policies, providing kind of a bigger vision for the master plan, for the downtown master plan area. It doesn't provide that many details. Yes, there's some tables dealing with maximum height and FAR, things of that nature, but for the most part, the downtown master plan element deals with just, it's a general explanation of the different goals for the area and the vision of the city. It doesn't provide, again, many of those details that are included in the zoning code. But we will certainly discuss this.
No, just the amount of build out we've seen in the last 5-10 years. It's been alarming in the rate that it's happening. So it'd just be interesting to see a retrospective look at the rest of it. And also, how does that apply to all the other neighborhoods in terms of any other zoning changes? Again, we're seeing the growth move north towards Northwood area, et cetera. Is that sort of part of the comprehensive review?
Yeah, we're looking, we have 13 elements in the comprehensive plan. One of them is the future land use element that dictates, again, land use patterns and development in the different future land use areas or future land use designations of the city. So that is one of the elements that we're looking at, housing, transportation, and so forth.
Yeah. Okay, perfect, great, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Moving on, we'll go down to item 5, declaration of ex parte communication. Does anyone have any ex parte to declare for any cases today? Oh, Ms. Kim?
Yes, I had a quick conversation with Brian Seymour on the Transit Village case today, and it will not affect my ability to be impartial today. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, likewise, I spoke with Brian Seymour very quickly yesterday and regarding the Transit Village item, and it won't affect my ability to vote impartially today.
All right.
I spoke with Brian Seymour on the case, and it will not affect my decision here today.
All right, thanks. Nick?
I also spoke with Brian Seymour, and it will not affect my ability to judge this case fairly.
Okay, and none for me. Perfect. We'll move into the public hearing portion of today's meeting. So anyone that will be speaking or presenting any testimony on any cases, kindly stand and be sworn in. Go ahead.
No, just to be clear, that also includes if you're doing any public comment, you must stand to be sworn in as well. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
All right, thanks. And yeah, when you do speak, remember, just use one of these microphones and state your name and address. And then if anyone in the audience does want to make any public comment, there's some cards outside or back on the back table. Just pass them up front, and we'll make sure that you're heard today. Okay, so we'll get into today's cases. We'll go down to item 2, deck case number 22-21. This will start with the applicant.
Good morning. For the record, Harvey Oyer of Schutz and Bowen on behalf of the applicant. It is a pleasure to be with you this morning to seek your special review of a site known as 120 Dixie Highway, but you probably also know it as the north side of the 300 block of Datura. The Dixie Highway building is a unique and great building in our community. It is where Layla is today, but historically, it was the city's original fire station years ago. So fantastic building. That stays in place under the proposal, and the several vacant lots and parking lots to the east of it, all owned by the applicant, are proposed to be a 12-story residential project with ground floor active uses. So this normally would not be in front of you because it's under a 50,000 square foot lot, which would be administrative approval, but because the applicant is exercising an incentive use, it then invokes your jurisdiction. So I will discuss the request, and then the bulk of this will be handled by the architect Kobe Karp and his team, who are with us this morning. So this is the site. I imagine that you're all familiar with it. Underdeveloped site in the core of the downtown. The request before you this morning is a special review for a 12-story multifamily building with 159 units, 6 of which are live-work units, 104 parking spaces, and again, preserving the existing old fire station slash Layla building, which is about 11,000 square feet of non-residential use. With that, I'm going to ask Kobe Karp, the architect of record on the project, to come forward and walk you through the site plan. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Harvey.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kobe. Nice to meet you. So this is our site plan, and here you can see where the historic is in pink on the left. And what we did is we created a passage paseo, mostly landscaping, between the new building and the existing building. I also have with me here George Puig. He is with Kimley Horn. He is the landscape architect who created the treatment along Datura, the treatment in the Passage Paseo that connects the east side of the fire station to the new building. Let me see if I can go to the next one. This image here shows you the relationship and the landscaping and the relationship that we're looking to do. Not only at the ground level, the pool area, and also the rooftop. This is the elevation. And this is the relationship, arches, and design that we pick up from the historic building for the inspiration and the direction we want to go. This is an image looking from Dixie back towards the building. and treatment of the alley and the Passage Paseo with the pool amenity area on top of the parking. This is the rendering looking northeast. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, suggestions, I'm here, and the rest of the team. Thank you.
You just, while you're there, just talk briefly about the materials and the colors, et cetera.
Yes, so we are looking to create the materials to be in bronze metal on the vertical framing. We have the mullions also in the same tonality on the building.
The bronze is the darker color, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yeah, Roger. And we use that from inspiration of the historic facade of the building. And that's the direction we would like to go, as well as the canopy on the top of the building, as well as the frames and the mullions on the glass.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for the architect while we're?
Hi. Can you go back to the east elevation? Yeah, that one. I'll go. Is that east?
So,
Oh, no. You have to go forward 2 slides. That one there. I'm assuming there's a future building that's going to be on your south side, or
Yes.
what's the condition?
Yes.
Ultimately, that's the side that doesn't have to be treated because there's a future potential building to be built.
Yes, yet the coloration will be in a similar form as the other elevation, the mullions and the frames, and I would like to mimic it on the facade.
Is there any requirement, staff, is there any requirement for any kind of fenestration or coloration on that side, even though we know that ultimately there's going to be something else there? It's a question of staff.
So this site actually has a 0 lot line here. There is an existing building, 2-story building that is there currently. So this will just be abutting that 2-story building.
Right, but ultimately there could be could there not be a larger building built there? Or are these faux windows? Are they real windows? What's the condition here?
On the upper elevations, those are functional windows. And then the lower podium level currently is a blank wall. We do have provisions to create facade articulation and projections that would not allow that. But if it is abutting the existing building that is there now, that is acceptable. However, if that building were to go, we would ask for improvements to the facade there.
Does it have to be conditioned in order to require that?
Yeah, we could implement a condition just to future-proof this project.
Future-proof, exactly. Thank you.
And I would accept that comment. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Let's continue with the presentation.
So the criteria by which you're judging this today is found in section 94-54B2, the DAC standards for special review. We believe we comply with all of these. Staff concurs with us, so I will not go through those unless you would like to. So again, we are requesting approval of the site plan formally as well as the DAC special review. Staff recommends approval with 3 conditions. We accept all 3. But I would like to put a caveat in here. We are working with or intend to work with city staff on the possible historic designation of the fire station building, which is not presently designated, nor are we in process to do that, which would allow us to then use a historic ad valorem exemption on the old building and the new building, and we are still working on that. If you were to approve this and city staff were to agree that the design that you're approving today works in the integration with the historic building, we would not be back before you. But in the event that there are changes made to the design in order to integrate it with the historic building, we would be back in front of you. And I just wanted to give you a heads up. There is a chance that we would be back before you in the future to make a few design changes in order to have those in function as an integrated whole with the historic building. Don't know if we're going to go down that road, but I thought I would at least let you know. As of now, the fire station is not a designated building. It could be, altered.
All right. Gotcha. Thanks.
And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. We'll hear from staff on this one. Chris?
Good morning, Chris Kimmerly, Urban Design Planner. Apologies in advance, I'm a little congested, so if my voice goes in and out here, that is why. This is for DAC case 22-21 for the 120 South Dixie. This project is in the Clematis Waterfront District Incentive Subdistrict of 10 to 12, so it is permitted up to 12 stories or 152 feet with an FAR of 3.25. The project is in compliance with this height. The decorative roof elements are within our allowable height encroachment. So the actual overall structure, I believe, is at 168, but the final roof line is at the 152 feet there. This is going for the special review, as Mr. Oyer alluded to, as it is using the TDR incentives. So in order to get those additional 2 stories to get to the 12th floor, the project does have to bring in 18,893 square feet of TDRs. In regards to the special review standards, there are the 4 there: relationship to the building and site and surroundings, circulation, traffic flow, building design, and public realm. Staff supports that the project complies with all 4 of these standards, and I'll go into a little more detail here. The first one, relationship to the building and site standards. So the surrounding context of this area, 12-story building does seem a little tall here. However, the surrounding blocks, 2-3 blocks away, do allow an 8 to 25-story incentive district. So this is well below that standard. Also, the blocks adjacent to this site also allow the 10 to 12 incentive as well. So it is well within the surrounding context of the build scale and massing. This project promotes active ground floor uses and residential units in an area today that is vacant parking and several vacant sites. The tower's massing is shifted toward the center of the site. This gives a little bit more relief to Datura Street, and also on the podium level there, it is also further set back. So it kind of keeps a 2 to 3 story scale along Datura, and then the tower itself actually sets into the site. And both the active and non-active facades of this building are integrated seamlessly with a consistent facade articulation across all portions of the building. Further, touching on the historic building, this was the former fire station for downtown West Palm Beach. It was constructed in 1905. In order to utilize the TDR incentives, this project does have to integrate the historic eligible structure into their overall plans. And you can see that with the separation and relationships in the massing, as well as the decorative archway elements and windows there. At this time, under the current proposal, the developer and applicant would be opting to renovate and keep the 120 Dixie building there. They would not designate it. However, that is an option in the future. And again, those architectural elements and materials are reflected in the newer tower element. Moving on to circulation and traffic flow, parking proposed on site is 104 spaces. This does satisfy the requirements of the project, and it's 159 units. A portion of those units are micro, which do not actually have a parking requirement within the downtown. Within the parking configuration, there are 8 car share stations, 2 rows of tandem spaces, and parking stackers. Because of the utilization of these stackers and the tandem spaces, staff is recommending a condition that the applicant developer shall provide both city planning staff and city traffic engineering staff with a valet operations and parking plan, just to clarify how the stackers are being utilized on site. There is ample bike storage on site, over 60 spaces, within 3 separate rooms in the building itself. 2 of those rooms are in the basement level. 1 is on the ground floor level, and there are additional bike racks within the public right-of-way as well. This configuration of the site creates 1 single curb cut off of Datura. Here, the loading and sanitation access is internalized within this driveway as well. And the landscaped areas around the public right-of-way are improved. We have actually in front of Datura an 8 to 14 foot wide sidewalk. So this is a very wide pedestrian sidewalk lined with street trees, and there's some base planting as well along the building. Moving on into the building design itself. Again, this is a very contemporary building design with some references that pay homage to the historic building. The facade articulation is consistent with the fenestration and transparency requirements. And the decorative elements that are on the roof line, again, are within the height requirements. And if the Downtown Action Committee so wishes, we could impose a condition that the eastern facade there, that blank wall, is further treated in the future should a change happen in the adjacent site there. Touching on building design, staff does have a condition in regards to the planar breaks. So if you look on the left-hand side there, those initial images, the structure for the first 5 stories, the podium, as we call, would have to project elements across the facade approximately 3 feet or recess 3 feet. The earlier renderings there did not have that. However, the new renderings as part of the DAC presentation here do show that there are elements along the southern facade there that now project the balconies and encase and enclose portions of the 5th to first floor. And staff does believe that this is an appropriate adjustment to the planar breaks, breaking up that mass a little bit more for the podium level, which is where the requirement is. So the condition is really that the renders show this, but maybe the site plan and architectural drawings weren't as clear, illustrating and calculating how these planar breaks are integrated. So we just ask for clarification in those plans before we issue site plan approval. Within the public realm, again, active use requirements are met on the ground floor. We have a series of live-work units as well as a residential lobby, and then the historic building will exist for commercial or office and retail spaces that are currently there. Again, this is much needed residential infill within the downtown. There is always a need for more housing, and this is a great project that brings 159 units into a space that is currently occupied by surface parking. And then the improved streetscape, again, we have wider sidewalks, more vegetation, more landscaping. There is the West Palm Beach art life component that is being satisfied on the Datura frontage, which you can see here at the bottom image there, with some art, sculptural, decorative piece at the entrance of the main building there and at the corner of the historic building. Moving to workforce housing, due to the project's utilization of TDRs to increase its height and FAR, the project is subject to the Downtown Master Plan's affordable housing program. In this program, there are in the original part of this program, which this project applies as it was submitted in September. We have since made revisions in January of this year. So they are under the old provisions of the housing program. But in this program, the applicant is to provide either restricted units on site as a part of their overall development, and this would match the finish and standard market rate units of the same building. The second option is to provide these units off-site. This would be to build these units concurrent to this project being built. And the third option is a payment in lieu, which is a monetary contribution to the city's housing trust fund, which is calculated on the per square foot construction costs. Again, this changed in January, where we made some alterations to the payment in lieu option. There's a 30% land cost and a 20% reduction in FAR. But again, this project is not subject to that as it came in before these changes. So under the applicant's project proposal, their workforce housing breakdown is as follows. So they have the 18,893 square feet they receive from TDRs. Their average unit size within this building is 813 square feet. This is not including the micro units. The approximate extra units they will receive from the 2 extra stories, or the FAR they receive, is about 23 units. And then of those 23 units, there's a 20% allocation for restricted units. So we have about 5 units that this project would have to provide on-site or off-site. And in this case, the applicant has elected to do the payment in lieu. And staff requests that the payment is made prior to the final CO. So that is another condition that we have as well. Public notice, mailers were sent to all property owners within 500 feet of the project site. Development services and planning staff has not received any additional letters of support or opposition, nor have we received any email or phone inquiries into this project. Staff recommends approval on the special review for the DAC case 2221 with the 2 conditions, or the 3 conditions, sorry, that the applicant provide the city traffic engineering staff with the valet operations and parking plan. The second one is that prior to CO, the applicant shall enter into an agreement with the city to provide the monetary contribution to the city housing trust fund. And the third is that the applicant will work with city planning staff to revise their planar break calculations and drawings within their architectural set. And I have prepared a suggested motion as well. And that is all. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Very thorough. Any questions, staff, immediately or later?
Yeah, really fast, Chris. So item 3, I thought they resolved it with their updated elevations with the planar break. You still want that condition on there?
Yes, because again, the planar breaks here are represented within the renderings of the drawing, but the overall elevation drawings,
Gotcha.
sets, and calculation
Have to
sets
be
might
updated.
not reflect that change.
Got it,
So.
thanks.
Okay, any other questions for staff right now? We can always,
Yeah, just a quick question on the streetscape treatment. You know, I see the live oaks are planted by the street, and I think there is mention about a really wide sidewalk. Is there any way to zoom in there and maybe have the landscape architect walk through how did that streetscape experience and urban design feel at that edge?
Good morning, George Twig, landscape architect with Kimley Horn and Associates. Trying to see how would be the best way to show you, if I could zoom in.
If there's not a graphic, you can just talk it through. I basically see a grid square pattern, just wondering about materials,
Correct.
finishes, etc.
I mean, the idea was that within the property itself, you can see between the historic building and the proposed building, the paving pattern, it's more free-flowing. And the intent was to So the intent was to have the same type of pattern between the vehicular and the pedestrian areas. This is on site, right, within the property itself, to kind of blur the lines and help it feel more like a plaza. And within that area, we have the landscape beds and seating area for people to enjoy. Now, pulling that pattern into the right-of-way can be done if we work with staff in order to accomplish that. Right now, we're just showing a grid and to be developed during the the DDs and CDs for the project. Is that what you would like to see? Is maybe bringing that out to the street?
Well, not necessarily. I was just curious about what is that material? Is it scored concrete? Is it pavers? Is it colored concrete? What does it feel like? What does it look like when
Yeah.
you're walking down that street?
So right now we envision having the colored concrete pavers themselves in there, and then you can see the spacing of the street trees to allow for a nice coverage, canopy coverage. I mean, especially in a month like we're having now, which you can't be outside for a long period of time. That's going to be very helpful. And then provide a separation between the sidewalk and the street itself with the landscape beds underneath the trees to make it feel a little more safe when walking along the streets. And that only happens along the Tura because we do have the right-of-way and also have the frontage. Along Dixie, it's a little more tight because the historic building is so close. So we don't have a really wide or as wide of a landscape bed as we have along the Tura, but we still have the street trees spacing. And then we have a narrow bed to provide some separation as well. The intent is to have the corner, both the frontage of Dixie and the Tura, be a continuous feel and look for that pavement.
Oh, great, yeah. Well, I'm sure you're going to develop the details accordingly in that phase of construction, just a sort of red flag. Whenever I hear pavers and squares, I'm reminded of our building and on Rosemary where, when you use square pavers over time, they just kind of move and bend and walk
Sure.
and pop up. And so if there is a paver pattern, interlocking pavers, et cetera, work much better than any kind of square pavers in the urban setting. So that just sort of caught my eye a little bit, but I'm sure you're going to work out all those details.
I mean, good point. The herringbone pattern will block the pavers much better, and this is just a generic a grid pattern. But I'll remember that for future presentations.
And then just to further to that point of the streetscape, I see the trees, I see the planters. Is there anything else going on,
Yes. So there's an art piece that's going to be installed between the historic building and kind of the drop-off area of the new building in a landscape bed. Hasn't been determined yet what it's going to be, but the idea that it's integrated in the landscape. And the idea of that space, I envision it as a garden space, right? Instead of being the outdoor space of a commercial or residential building, I envision it as somebody's yard, somebody's garden space, and have it be a little more intimate because there's limited green space. So this would be a nice refuge for both the residents and the people walking along the Tura to be able to come into the space and sit at a table, relax, enjoy the space. You're going to have some shade and shadows from the buildings themselves, so that's going to be very helpful. And the idea that it's loose and most of the material is native ground covers, the saw palmetto, the sword fern. There's more tropical loose material, not material that's going to be hedged or pruned or maintained in a formal fashion, so it feels a little more relaxed and belongs to South Florida.
Sounds good. Yeah, that was my other comment, just in terms of the shade, because I think you'd pretty much just get a little teeny sliver of sunlight right there in that kind of space. So I'm sure as you do those details, all the species will be appropriate for that. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, good points, I agree.
Roger.
Anyone else?
Really quick, it's because Nick raised it in that 14-foot section of sidewalk along Detura. Are you proposing any street furniture, like benches or anything like that? It's a wide profile.
It is.
And there's these trees on top, and we've got 5 or 6 live, work, and trees in that area. So it kind of makes sense to have something that would allow for some kind of interactive space. I just didn't, it seems like it's a pretty big space. Any opportunities for that?
There is, yeah. We could certainly entertain adding some benches there as we develop the project further. So if that's a request, then we can accommodate that.
Thanks.
Very good.
I just have a quick comment to dovetail the earlier comments about the pavers and then the possibly some urban furniture. So the pavers, if for long-term sustainability, ongoing operations, if you could kind of consider some material and coloring that would easier to maintain. Because I walk down the Rosemary and the pavers there are beautiful, but then they keep constantly cleaning with bleaches, even with the leaves falling, and then over long-term, it's just really bad for the environment. And so something sustainable, and same thing with any urban furniture. If you put it in there, consider something that would withstand the climate, all the rain and hot sun of South Florida. I see a lot of wooden furniture in new buildings that just get severely damaged even after one rainy season. So
That's
something please consider.
That's a good recommendation. We will certainly think about materials that take abuse, especially, a bench like a concrete bench that could be beautiful if it's custom or if it's even precast, and it's lasting and certainly will do better with the heat. So, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Stephen?
Yeah. I don't know if you can go to the site plan at the first level. Just want to talk a little, ask a couple of questions about the just the circulation and access through the property. I just want to make sure.
Which plan are you referring to?
Do you have a first level to ground floor?
The ground floor, but that shows
Not, maybe the third floor will do it.
Let's see if it shows.
Steve, did you want staff's slide with the circulation of traffic?
Yeah, that might help. Yeah, that'll do. That's good. That one. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
So just looking at, entry and exit is off Datura, and the materials there when you come on site, I'm assuming like you've got looks like you're proposing two different types of material, but I'm assuming that's all flush.
Yeah, it's all flush. It's the same material, different colors.
Okay.
And when we design these type of projects, we've learned from experiences, the vehicular area pavers need to be on slab.
Yep.
Because eventually they will start, popping, and you have a lot of traffic and movement, people coming in and out. So, but it's the same paver flush with the
Okay.
right-of-way sidewalk.
All right. So no vehicular access into the alley on the north side. Is that correct?
From on-site, no.
Okay, so everything will come out onto Datura. So, and looking at the renderings and the like, so there's this sort of alleyway proposed, or sort of pedestrian plaza between Datura Street and the alley. Is that correct? On
Yes.
the east side of the fire station, between the fire station and the building.
Yeah,
Between
correct.
Layla's and the building. Yeah, so if you look at that image, probably bottom right on the slide where you show the artwork, so that's like a pedestrian walkway, is it, between the existing building? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I don't know if staff, maybe this is more a question for staff, would there be a public access easement or something over that to enable public access? Or is that envisioned only for private use? What's the intent there?
So within the alleyway and the top image here, you can see this is probably the improved alleyway. This is one of the few improved alleyways we have within the downtown there. This project and its entry and little courtyard meandering garden there does connect with a pedestrian access into it. At this time, it was just intended it's not designated as private or public open space.
Okay.
This project's open space requirements were purely private, and they are provided in the upper terraces. Again, if the applicant is amenable to having a public access easement through this area to get to the alleyway, but it is not something that the staff was requiring or recommended for this project.
Okay, so it's not required by code. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that was really my question. Just wanting to understand that if it's not required by code, then I understand. Obviously, if the applicant wanted to offer it, I think that's great. But I think there's plenty
their
of
only
other
requirement
access
again was
available.
private open space, and that was through the rooftop and the third floor amenity deck and pool deck area.
Okay. And with regards to the monetary contribution, what dollar value are we looking at in terms of the number of units for payment in lieu? Do we know?
So the payment in lieu contribution is based on I might get the acronym wrong here, ITC or ITB, and it's the International Building Code.
Okay.
So it is the cost of construction of this year on that project. So if it is a multifamily residential project, it is the cost of construction per square foot on that project, and that is.
So even at 5 units, it's not a small amount, is it?
Yeah.
I guess, you know, and this is more just maybe just general commentary. You know, I understand that, you know, obviously there's financing and things involved with these developments, so making payment prior to final CO is probably appropriate from the developer's standpoint, because, you know, they need to figure out how they're going to pay for all this. But you know, I don't know whether it's something staff's thought about or not, but whether it's more appropriate, and I'm not necessarily saying specific to this project, but in the future thinking about whether we want those payments sooner. You know, final CO on a development like this, I mean, I would imagine if this is apartments or condos, I don't know, but there'll be multiple COs throughout the project. They may be issued by floor or whatever it is. So whether or not we're impeding our ability to access those funds for you know, for income restricted units, you know, whether there's an opportunity to maybe get those sooner, you know, prior to issuance of the first CO on the building or something like that. But you know, if that's the decision that's been made, I don't know if I necessarily have an issue with it, but it's probably just more a general commentary. So I know it's not an insignificant amount for the developer to pay. So.
And I believe under the resolution 22823 that was passed in January of this year, again, there were revisions made to the payment in lieu option specifically, as we want to disincentivize that, and we want the units in the downtown. We want the units in these projects.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but I will check again. There may be conditions that the payment has to be done at the time of building permit. So
Okay.
I'll double check on that.
Yeah.
So I think the logic of the city commission behind making the payment due at CO is because that is the time when the units would have been delivered into the inventory. So you either deliver the 5 units into inventory on your CO date, or you pay the in lieu fee on that date.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I guess, you know, to staff's point, if they wanted to try to disincentivize the monetary payment in lieu, you know, requiring that a little more upfront might do that. But if that's the way it is, then.
Yeah, on a project like this where it's only 5 units, administratively, it makes no sense for a developer to do that, because all of the record-keeping, income qualifying, requalifying them every year to set up that internal administrative apparatus over 5 units makes no sense. If you're doing, you know, 100 units, then to set up those systems where you income qualify an applicant, send it to the city, get it approved, do that every year with every tenant that is in one of those, then it starts to make sense. But there's no economy of scale for doing it for 5 units.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other clarifications before we move to public comment or questions? Okay. Just one quick follow-up for clarification on the alleyway. So where is the service on the site for the dumpsters and trash? Is that on the alley, or is that coming through the main entrance?
Yeah, it's on the alley.
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So let's wrap this up. We heard from the applicant and staff. Any comments from anyone in the public on this case? We do? Okay. Oh, here's your card right here. Look at that. All right.
Hi, good morning.
Timothy Schultz.
My name's Timothy Scholes. I live at 101 North Clematis Street. My office is also at the Via Jardin Condominiums, which is 330 Clematis Street, just to the north of this proposed project. I think it looks like a great project, number one. I would just ask you to consider what they plan to do with the alleyway. As you know, once this gets built, we lose more public parking from downtown. That public parking area now has been, well, not private parking, but it's been a walkway through to Clematis, and I don't know if that's going to be restricted. It's not really my problem. I don't really think much about it. But one of the problems I have is the alleyway behind my building, which will be to the north of this project, just to the south of my office building. There's nowhere to get deliveries at all. We have problems with that. We've always had, when construction people come in, we have to do, you know, delivering supplies, things like that. They usually park in the parking lot behind us. That alleyway has always been closed. I don't know why they redid it. It's never been open. They have the silver pilings there. So maybe something along the lines of trying to open up that alleyway for deliveries to the back would be helpful to the people that have our offices to the north of that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it looks like a great project. I look
Okay.
forward to it.
Thanks for your comments. I'm sure staff could either answer that now or definitely consider that as they move forward with the procedures here. I don't have the answer for that.
I can touch briefly on the alleyway. I mean, it is an improved alleyway. The city did to undergo the project to improve that with pavers and undergrounding as much of the utility lines that they could within that. There is still some overhead FPL and electrical lines that I believe run through the southern end of that alleyway. It is a 14-foot wide alleyway, so there is not enough space to really designate a loading area adjacent to it. It's kind of functional as a, pass through. Obviously, there's some loading operations that occur within the alleyway and continue in a one-way direction. But the alley itself, I don't think is directionalized. I don't think many downtown alleyways currently are. There's maybe one or two a part of new developments, but this alley as it stands is still a two-way with 14 feet wide. The project itself here, the 120 Dixie project, does have an internal loading space on the ground level for their own loading and delivery services, but I can't speak to the nature of how the alleyway is utilized for the rest of the businesses.
Are there hours when the bollards are up or down, or how does that work?
I am not 100% sure. I could certainly talk to city traffic engineering and right
All
away.
right, maybe you guys can just circle the logistics of all that within,
Yeah,
come up with a
absolutely.
solution. All right, thanks. Any other comments from anyone in the audience on this case? All right, seeing none, we'll close public discussion and turn it over to the board members for any questions of the applicant or staff. Anyone? Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and as an architectural guru, you might have more on this, but for me personally, I appreciate the fresh interpretation to incorporate the historic building, but I would like to see even more homage to the architectural elements. So perhaps in the planar breaks or somewhere else, when the next time you come back, maybe I would love to see more arches. The existing building have so many arches in different sizes, different heights, and this one have very minimalistic approach to that. So perhaps you try to add more, incorporate or echo more of those architectural elements in the revision.
I'll just, since you're bringing that up, I'll comment. I think the success of the relation to the building has been accomplished with the color and material and the structure and the the complexity. I'm not so sure. I'm not even excited about the two arches personally. I think they're not necessary to make. They've made the relationship. So I think maybe doing the arches is too much of a literal interpretation. I think it's a successful design, but we can further go over that. But I see where you're coming from, but I think they've done it in another way without a literal copy of the arches. So if anyone else. But yeah, it's a good comment for sure. Anyone else? Anything for staff, for the architect?
So there's the condition regarding a valet plans, probably for staff. There's a condition regarding the valet plan and tandem plan. Has one been submitted already, or was any review done before this came to the board?
Traffic engineering has looked and reviewed at the plans. We're not opposed to the tandem uses or the stackers. Yep. They are common in many office buildings now and new projects coming in. We just want clarification on the hours of operation, the amount of tenants available on site, and then the general flow. But in terms of the plans and the auto turn analysis and things like that, that all functions well within the building and the site. Mm-hmm. It's just more of a clarification on operations with tenants and the amount of hours and time spent. Yes.
Agree. We're seeing this more and more. Tandem parking, stacked parking, valet parking, they're all legitimate and 100% reasonable ways to park downtown. There should be more of it. Probably what I think would be useful in these presentations for us is to be able to see that demonstrated, probably from, just for staff and the applicants as well, and not just this applicant, future applicants. I get a little nervous when we just have a condition that feels like we haven't looked at that. To me that reads a little bit like, well, we still want to see the plan later on. I know staff is reviewing it, but I think in these presentations it would be really helpful if we if we see it. You know, we need to understand, the board needs to feel comfortable that these things work properly. So if there needs to be a final plan approved with regards to specific hours of operation, numbers of staff, that kind of thing, I understand that hasn't necessarily been developed right now, but you know, just some general analysis would be really useful, particularly when it comes to conflicts downtown, on-street parking, wide 14-foot sidewalks, maybe with no obstructions, where people like to park their cars. I'll say it every chance I get because I see it around downtown all the time. You know, hotels using sidewalks for their parking. You know, so as this board, that's an important aspect for us to be able to consider. So,
Yeah, and I'll certainly, again, within future projects, make sure that we try to provide these items up front for your guys' review.
yeah. But knowing that that's been addressed, I'm comfortable with that issue.
I guess my only issue is, I love the minimalist design, the modern building playing off of it. In this case, less is more. The arches, I kind of agree, we don't need any more arches, and maybe those two are even more than what we need. But on the east elevation, nothing is less. So we need to beef up the east elevation in some capacity, even if it's doing the window mullions in the same color, something. But I mean, we have three really solid sides, and we can get into the specifics, and Roger's going to get into the specifics of the elements themselves. But the east side is like literally, we need a little bit more punch on the east side. That's my opinion. From an architectural standpoint, all the other fenestration, all the other vertical elements work, and it's hard because you're trying to get that historical aspect pulled into this modern design, but the east elevation needs a little bit of help.
Okay. Is that it? Yeah. You good? Nick, you again? Nope. No? I'm good. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good project. I don't have any problem with I think they meet all the requirements for the special exception. Just to follow up on some of the architectural commentary, I think it's a really well-done building. I think especially the south and north facades just have a nice level of both simplicity and complexity at the same time, the material palette, the depth, I'd like to see if you could explore carrying that around to the ends, because I think, you know, I could see where maybe you're going with the ends being very simple and plain, but I think they're too simple, and it's just almost a completely different idiom from the north and the south. So, you know, maybe you could still keep the planes and have some interplay, some pull in and out of those facades, whether they're just eyebrows or balconies. But I think you could definitely develop the east and west to be far more compatible to the success of the north and south. And like I said, I just lose the arches. I think it detracts from the historic building. And you've done a good job with the materials and the diagram and the structure and the grid. So yeah, I think it's really well done. And all the landscape comments are spot on about really developing that sidewalk and making that sort of a really special promenade. But yeah, I think it's well done, and I would just revisit the east and the west facades. Yep. It's a good project. Any other comments or questions? No? Someone want to try and formulate a motion?
Do we want a motion with a condition regarding the east and west facades? I'll make a
I
motion.
saw the architect sort of
Yep.
nodding his head, so he's excited to develop those further.
Let me pull it up here.
Whether we want to see that come back and sort of, we could, I'm sure, if the motion maker is willing to have approvals, and we can take a look at those later, but
Yep.
I don't think it should stop the forward progress of this.
So I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 22-21 as listed in the staff report dated August 9th, 2023, with the following conditions. Prior to issuance of the final site plan approval, the applicant developer shall provide city planning and traffic engineering staff a parking and/or valet operations plan for the project. This is in response to the project's use of tandem and stacker parking spaces. 2, prior to issuance of final certificate of occupancy, in accordance with section 94-134 Downtown Master Plan, Housing Incentive Program, the applicant developer shall enter into an agreement with the city to provide a monetary contribution to the city's Housing Trust Fund in lieu of providing the income restricted units on-site or off-site. 3, prior to issuance of the final site plan approval, the applicant shall work with the city planning staff to revise their elevation drawings to satisfy section 94-109, table 4-4, and the planar break requirement for reconsidering what elements shall be included in the planar break calculations, and to explore more alternatives in how the decorative architectural elements or building mass along the Day Tourist Street facade may project or be recessed in areas 3 feet to meet the standards. Proposed new condition 4, prior to issuance of the final site plan approval, the applicant shall work with city planning staff to revise the elevation drawings for the east and west facades, to provide additional elements complementary to the north and south facades, not limited to removal of the arches, and that the proposed elevations be brought back to the Downtown Action Committee for review and approval prior to issuance of final site plan approval.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion second. Any further discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Very nice project. Appreciate it. All right, moving forward. So that was 2221. So DAC case 22-18.
Thank you so much for your
Okay.
time.
Mr.
All right,
Chair,
appreciate it. Thank you. Well done.
Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself from DAC case number 2218, DAC case number 2223, DAC case number 2217, and DAC case 2214, and in retrospect, DAC case number 2302.
Okay, so noted. Thank you. Okay, want to hear from the applicant?
Good morning, board members. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jexi Chamber. I'm the principal planner of Urbana. I'm here on behalf of Brian Checkes, principal planner of iPlan and Design, which in turn is here on behalf of the Nora Holdings LLC, the property owner and the applicant for these applications. With us this morning is one of the property owners, in case you have any questions in terms of ownership for this development. We're here this morning in front of you requesting approval for 3 different parcels within the Nora Phase 1A of the 3 phases for the development. These 3 parcels are requesting multiple type of variances, and I'll go in detail shortly. In the last case is requesting a formal site plan approval for the temporary parking lot for 160 parking spaces, which I'll be detailing shortly. A little bit of background and some facts about the Nora development. As most of you already know, Nora received the approval for the district in February of 2022. This morning, we are here only reviewing the parcels within Phase 1A of the Nora 3 phases. This particular phase is composed of commercial uses. They're a little bit short of 156,000 square feet of retail, food and beverage, and health and fitness uses, all across 14 different sites, all the way from the east and west sides of North Railroad Avenue, stretching from 7th and 10th Avenue. We're also reviewing some of the off-site surfing parking space, which are permitted as an accessory use within the Nora district. This is just showing you the Nora master plan boundary lines, which are going east to west from Dixie Highway to the FEC right away, and all the way going north to south from Palm Beach Lakes to 7th Street. This is just to provide you a little bit of context. The parcels that we are reviewing this morning. Again, this is the existing buildings within the Nora Phase 1A. This is what I just mentioned. It's about 157,000 square feet of commercial uses. The required parking spaces for all of these buildings, which most of them are existing buildings, which will be refurbished, is 165 parking spaces. We are providing a total of 245 parking spaces. These parking spaces are throughout this development, and they consist of on-site parking, street parking, multimodal pickup and drop-off, as well as 2 different lot parking spaces. The parking lot in the middle, east of Dixie Highway, it will be a permanent parking lot, and the one we're seeking approval this morning is the one on the northwest corner of Palm Beach Lake and the FEC right away. It's important to know that the total parking provided for these 2 parcels is 218. In addition to this, NODA have separated the pedestrian and the service uses to provide, of course, a better experience for not only the visitors, but the residents in this area. So they created what they consider the service core. They provided an additional 75 parking spaces just for the employees, for the vendors and the service to be parking in this area. So that should provide a better transition, not only for vehicle, but also for pedestrian on North Railroad. These are the 4 parcels that we were reviewing this morning. Again, the 3 dots within the yellow area are the parcels that we're seeking relief this morning. And the northwest, that is the one that we're seeking approval for a temporary parking lot. Before I enter into each one of the cases, I do want to know that the Nora district is a very unique development site within the city, and actually district within the city of West Palm Beach. It is composed of multiple tiny parcels. They have different size, configuration, shapes, and have existing construction, which is part of the redevelopment. They're being refurbished. What this does is make it complicated for to address each one of the parcels in meeting 100% of the code. But the property owners and the team of consultants, which are local consultants team, understood these constraints from the beginning, developed NORA to meet all of the requirements of your code as a whole, as a district. So although we're requesting release from some of the parcels today, that is due to the parcel size, to some of the existing structure that has been refurbished. So in theory, we are actually not missing any of those elements. I do want to reiterate that we're not removing or deleting what we're requesting approval today. What we're doing is actually relocating whatever it is required for these deviations on areas that are more strategic, located for these particular elements. For example, if we need to, some of them we're reducing the canopy trees. So those canopy trees will be added in larger green areas within the development of NORA. So I just want you to know that we're not actually reducing any of the deviations that we're requesting approval this morning. All right, so let's start with case 22-18. This parcel is located on the east side of North Rail Road. It's 885 through 915 North Rail Road. In this particular parcel, we are seeking release for section 94-109, table 4-7 of the open space element. The first variance has to do with the actual ratio, the open space depth ratio. This particular parcel, again, we want to be addressing each parcel on its own. If we were to meet this requirement, we will not be consistent, we will be deviating for the main street design of NORA. So the North Railroad Avenue will be kind of like the main corridor. If this parcel were to make that requirement, it will not be consistent, it will look totally different than the rest of the corridor. So this is one of the reasons this particular parcel, out of all the parcels within the phase, is unique. We're also seeking release for the seating requirement. In this particular case, which you guys I will show you in a second, this building has been refurbished to provide multiple bays for multiple uses. Therefore, we are proposing that each one of the tenants provide their seating space based on their design, branding as they come into place, versus us imposing how much space will be at the front, and you will see it as I show you the picture shortly. In terms of the vegetation requirement, again, this particular building, this particular size and existing, there is not enough space. We added as much as we could. In this particular case, we added 15% of the required. But again, whatever was the difference was added into other open space and green spaces throughout the NORA development. In terms of the overhead, we increased that from the minimum 20% to an additional 13%. And I'll show you shortly, but that one is to provide more protection from the frontage of the buildings, also from the pedestrian, and provide a better pedestrian experience as you're hanging out right in front of these bays and services. And the last one has to do with the tree canopy. Again, there is not enough space. We added as much as we could. However, they will be part of the recent streetscapes improvement on the road. So we believe that whatever we're adding along with what was on the road shall comply with this requirement. This is a site plan that was submitted for review. This is pretty much everything that I just mentioned. This is the area that we're seeking relief. Again, this is we will be including all of the perimeter shrubs and ground covers, everything to coincide with the already the streetscape requirements for landscape and sidewalk and plant material to be consistent with what was on the road already. This is a color version of the plan. You can see the area in orange. In orange is your canopy and your hardscape and landscape. This is the existing building. To my left and to my right is what is proposed, and this is an enlarged version. I don't know if you guys can see it. You can see it, right? Mm-hmm. But you can see the canopy already extended. That's where that 13% is coming from. Hopefully you guys can see that in each one of them there is multiple bays. They have their own entrances. You can still see, we can show some of the seating area, which is one of the areas that we're seeking, one of the variants that we're seeking relief. There will be seating areas. We're just leaving up to each tenant to provide it as they were coming in. The second case is case 22-23. That one is also located on the west side of North Railroad. This is on 1005 through 1015 North Railroad Avenue. We're seeking a release from section 24-09, table 5-7. Again, it's the open space element. In this particular parcel, this is unique. I don't know if you can tell, but the configuration is very unique from the rest of the parcel. In terms of the passage width for the open space, we can only provide 7.5. However, we're immediately adjacent to another parcel that is providing an additional 15 feet in width. And combined with ours, we're providing a wider area, and I'll show it to you shortly. So that's one of the variances. And the second one has to do with, again, just like the other one with the tree canopy. We added as much as we could, and again, we believe with what is already installed as a part of the streetscape requirements, which should be sufficient for this particular parcel. This is the site plan that was submitted as part of your review process. These are the areas we're seeking release. Again, the trees are the ones right up against the North Railroad Avenue, and the passage width is the one that is north of the parcel. It's hard to see it in here, but I'm going to show you the color section. I don't know if this works. It's not working. But if you can see right immediately to our parcel, you can see already the rest of the green and the paved area from the immediately adjacent parcel. So it's a very wide passage that people can still hang out and go through all the way from Railroad all the way to the back service area. This is to my left is the existing building condition. To my right is the proposed building. Again, it has a large plaza with a very wide passage. This is an enlarged version of that area. As you can tell, we're actually trying to mimic or match or complement already what is part of the streetscape design from the city. And as you can tell as well, some of the canopies are already part of it, so we provided landscape material to complement what's already part of the streetscape design. The next case is case 22-17. This is all located on the east side of North Railroad at 140 through 1040 through 1080 North Railroad. We're seeking release to section 94-127, table 435. This particular one has to do with the 25-foot required side interior setback. This is the site plan that was submitted as part of the review process. Just gonna skip this one. And this one is showing that release that we're seeking. Again, this has to do with the emergency egress stairwell. This is not an active use space. Unfortunately, just it's a requirement as part of your building code. And so therefore, we're encroaching 1.5 feet into your setback. This is a color version of the site plan showing, this is actually very unique because as I mentioned earlier, each one of the parcels has been addressed on its own. And this one is one of the base case scenarios where this parcel actually meets most of the requirements of the code. As you can tell, it's parking itself. It has require ADA parking spaces, the dumpster area, landscape material perimeters, terminal islands. It has all the shade trees. So this one is one of those parcels that was actually meeting the majority of the requirements of your code, except for that stairwell that we're seeking relief this morning. This is an existing picture to my left of what it is today and what we're proposing. This is an enlarged version of the proposed, and as you can see, it's right in front of what we consider a linear green space, linear park right in front of it. That park will be containing the majority, what is the equivalent of the additional open space that we're not missing on the other parcels that we're seeking today, as well as the canopy trees that are required as part of those parcels. This is just to show that all of these risk cases are meeting the variance standards all the way A through J. Staff is recommending approval of cases 22-18 and 22-23 due to contingent to one condition of approval, and we're in agreement with that condition. Staff is also recommending approval to case 22-17 with no conditions of approval, and we welcome that. The last case is the actual site plan. We're requesting the site plan approval for a temporary parking space. This parking space is located on the east side of the FEC right away between Palm Beach Lake Boulevard and 11th Street. This temporary parking space, not only this temporary parking space, but all of the parking space through NORA has been designed to separate, again, as I mentioned earlier, the pedestrian and the vehicular traffic. NORA initially, from the beginning, understood that they wanted all of the employees, the vendors, the service to be away from the experience from the main corridor, and that's why all of the services were located to the back of the building. And this particular, even though it is a temporary parking lot, meets a lot of those requirements. This parking lot will facilitate valet parking as well as self-parking for the general public. However, this parking lot will be modified and will be in existence up until phase 3 of the NORA development will come into fruition. At that point, either this become a permanent parking space or all of this required parking space will be incorporated as part of the NORA tree design. There is an existing 2,500 square feet building. As part of your code for temporary parking lot, non-existing structures can be removed, and therefore NORA is using this building as part of a storage use and will remain in place up until phase 3 come into fruition. I also wanted to note that the City of West Palm Beach is working with the applicant to provide a limited use agreement for the Central Public Outlet. I believe this is due to a potential land swap for the future Palm Beach Lakes Bridge widening, so that will probably come to you at some point in the future. This is just to show that although it is a temporary parking lot, it meets all of your requirements for a permanent parking lot in terms of finishing, landscape islands, access with ADA, perimeter buffers, so it is meeting all of the requirements of the code. This is just a color version of the site plan that was submitted on review by staff, again, showing that existing building to remain as a storage building. This is just a table. I know it's hard to read, but this is just to confirm that was what was submitted as part of this application, to show the phase 1, the required, all of the existing square footage and what we're proposing on each one of the buildings and the uses, the required parking, and where this parking will be located. And this one just to show that the required parking spaces for phase 1A is 165 parking spaces. We're providing 245. Again, we have a surplus of 80, which is part of the service core area parking spaces for the employees and service core. This particular temporary parking lot meets all of your requirements for section 9405. Criteria A to D. Criteria A has to do with the location of the building. The structure, the parking lot, I'm sorry. In this particular case, it is fronting 11th Street, so there's no issue with that. B have to do with, we cannot demolish any existing structure. We're not building, the existing building for 2,500 square feet will remain in place. Criteria number C is not applicable, and criteria number D has to do with the required landscape material, which is meeting code 100%. Staff is recommending approval of this application contingent to 5 conditions, and we're in agreement with all the conditions. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, great, thanks. Any questions now, or we can wait till later, hear from staff? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hear from Chris.
So I'll go through each of these cases individually, as each of the variances are independent from one another. The first one is DAC case 2218. This is for 885 and 915 North Railroad Avenue. As the applicant had stated, this is within the NORA 5 subdistrict. It is permitted 5 stories in height, or 68 feet, and a 2.75 FAR. This project is requesting 5 separate variances. All these variances are tied to the open space that is provided. The first variance deals with the fact that there is a private open space requirement on these projects. All the projects within the NORA 5 district do not have a public open space requirement. It is a private open space requirement. However, due to providing private open space on a ground level and on a street frontage, it must be designed to meet public open space standards and be accessible to the public. And that is where the variance requests arise, as these designated sites don't necessarily fit the context of our public open space standards. The first one here is a variance request, which is from the dimensional constraints on the open space, where we state in the code that no one side can be 5 times the length of another. In this example here, the frontage is 105 or 100.6 feet, and the width is 13 feet. Again, so we are allowing here with this variance a space that does exceed that dimensional constraint. The second variance request is for fixed seating. This is a linear foot calculation for every 30 square feet of open space. They have to provide 1 linear foot of fixed seating. As the applicant mentioned, they are providing no fixed seating in these spaces. They're kind of leaving it open for the tenants to either do through dining or benches or things like that. The third variance request is on the vegetated area of the open space. This variance requested is a deficiency of about 79 square feet. And the fourth variance request is for maximum overhead cover. So with the applicant's proposal, they have many awnings and canopies that extend over this space. These awnings and canopies, while providing cover from the elements and shade, are exceeding what we would normally allow in an open space. And the fifth variance there is for the tree canopy. Again, it's kind of substituted through the overhead cover with the awnings and canopies. Where they're deficient in tree canopy, they provide an abundance of awnings and canopies. Again, as I said, within the Nor 5 sub-district, there is no requirement for private open space. There is a 15% requirement for, or public open space, there is a 15% requirement for private open space. This 15% requirement is about 1,600 square feet. And because it's on the ground level, it has to meet our public's open space standards. The applicant is providing actually 2,080 square feet of public open space. And going into the support of the variance, staff is supportive of the requests. Again, as this typically is a requirement of private open space, so the general public would not really receive a direct benefit of these spaces. They're typically located in a terrace or a rooftop area, so the applicant providing it on the ground floor and opening it up to the public is a public benefit to allow that access to this space. North Railroad Avenue, as we've gone through the rezoning and the master plan and the iterations of many of the projects, has a desired context where it's kept low scale on the east and west side of North Railroad Avenue. So encouraging an additional story or two to fix or to allow for a garden or terrace isn't quite ideal, as we'd like to keep this lower scale context as it relates to the low scale interior core of the Brailsford Park neighborhood adjacent to this. Many of these projects are going just for building permitting, as they are adaptively reusing existing warehouses and garages. They're keeping many of the adjacent structures and walls and the slabs. So again, we don't want to disrupt this Main Street vernacular, similar to what Clematis, Rosemary, or Northwood has, as this continuous scale of 1 to 2 story buildings. And disrupting that with either cutouts in open space or an additional story for terraces and rooftop gardens is not something that we seem ideal for this district in this context. As the applicant alluded to, the ownership, NDT development, and place projects on the Nora project here, they have done significant investment into this district. The North Railroad Avenue is seeing an enhanced streetscape design that went to City Commission, that was before you, before in the board, where we've reduced the travel lanes, we've widened the sidewalks, we've added lush landscaping. There's an art element along the entire length of North Railroad Avenue. And on the eastern side, there is some surface parking as well as a linear park. So this linear park kind of offsets maybe some of the lost vegetation we see interior to these individual properties, but the streetscape and the parking and the park on the east side is a sense a way to mitigate the variance requests here. Again, open air space and green space is still being provided, and the square footage component that does exceed the requirement. However, due to the site constraints and the ideal neighborhood context, it does not fit our criteria. Staff is supportive of variances 1 through 5 through one condition. The one condition is that when these private open spaces are being met at the ground level, that these spaces shall remain unencumbered and accessible to the general public at all times. We don't want to have these spaces delineating from private and public. We don't want to create a hard edge or fence or barriers with landscaping or any material that would limit access to these spaces. So these spaces do have to be designed in a public manner and public component where they're always accessible. Some notable examples, just to point it out, 360 Rosemary, the office tower there, Felice, the restaurant, that courtyard is actually a public open space. They have their dining tables and chairs around there, but the public can walk through that area. The public can sit at the tree and the benches and stuff and be welcomed in that space. Should Harry's and Adrian's follow that same principle, again, the public should be able to access that plaza and be able to function there. And then the 410 Avernia Garden District Tap Room, again, they have a similar public open space on the corner of Quadrille and Fern that the general public is able to access at all times. The variance requests are particular to the conditions of the site, the lot depth that's constrained with the new streetscape and the FEC right-of-way on these western parcels. They are the minimum requests necessary to make the project work in regards of providing a dense mixed commercial retail spaces, which is the intent of the district. The applicant has worked with staff to reduce the variance requests made, and we believe that the variance request will not be detrimental to the general public, as again, it affords the redevelopment of low-scale, light industrial garage spaces into something that is more akin to Clematis or Northwood, where you have restaurant, retail, and commercial components. Staff supports that the project meets all 8 of the variance standards. There were public notices sent to all property owners within 500 feet of the project site. And again, we have received no comment since. And staff is recommending approval on DAC case 2218, that it meets the requirements of section 9438D6 with the inclusion of the one condition there. And I will move to the next item. So this is DAC case 2223. This is for 1005, 1015 North Railroad Avenue. Again, this is a similar condition within the NORA 5 subdistrict. They have 2 variance requests. These again are for the public private open space requirements. This one is a little bit of a different context here. So the applicant is proposing to do a passageway. This is a public open space that connects 2 rights-of-way. So in this instance, it is the back service court area and the FEC right-of-way and North Railroad Avenue. The first request is for, again, a dimensional constraint where the code requires that no one side is less than 25 feet. In this illustration here, you see that the little leg of the open space, this portion here, is 7.5 feet. It is tied into the adjacent property. Now, we can account the adjacent property and what is being developed there, but this width here is actually maintaining a 15-foot width. So this will be an open corridor between the 2 properties. But their variance request is for the width on that little end there. The second variance request is for the tree canopy in the open space. So much of the outer edge of the open space is lined with trees. However, they're deficient 8%, and that is because this interior area has been kept open at this time due to Again, awnings and canopies intruding or encroaching from the building's face, and the potential of a covered structure through a trellis, arbor, or something like that. Again, as the first case was stated, they only have a private open space requirement. That is 2,320 square feet. The applicant is proposing a space that has 2,384 feet. And the similar arguments are made here. Again, this to furthering expanding this open space or cutting into the building disrupts the viability of the commercial retail space in that. Again, we don't want to encourage an additional level or story for a rooftop garden or terrace. And then this is the context here. Again, the open space is being provided. It doesn't quite meet our standards outlined for public open space. Staff supports this variance request again with the same condition as the first, that these spaces are kept open and unencumbered to the general public at all times. Staff supports that the project meets all 8 of the variance standards. Again, mailers were sent to all property owners within 500 feet. This project also did not receive any comment from the public. And staff is recommending approval with the one condition on this. For DAC case 2217, this is 1040 and 1080 North Railroad Avenue. This project is a little bit different than the other two. It is located in the Brailsford Park residential subdistrict, permits 3 stories or 42 feet in height, and there's a maximum density of 32 dwelling units per acre. There is no FAR component to this. They are requesting a single variance, and that is to the side interior setback for mixed uses along North Railroad Avenue. Getting into the one variance request here, so with the code changes that we took place with the rezoning of the Nora district and the Brailsford Park districts, we added new conditions or new setbacks. With this is particular to commercial projects fronting North Railroad Avenue that are on the eastern side. So with these new setbacks, kind of outlined here in red, we have the residential side street on the north, Railroad Avenue, alley, and side interior. This project does not technically have a rear or a front setback due to that constraint, or due to those changes. So the applicant is requesting a variance from the side interior setback, which is 25 feet. During the application process, they claim this was their back, which is only a 20, so there's where that discrepancy kind of lies in the interpretation of the new setbacks. So they are asking for an encroachment of 1.5 feet into the side interior setback, and it is only for an egress stair. And that was what I just mentioned. The code change revised these setbacks for the district. Staff is supportive of these requests as it is an emergency egress stair. It is required by building code. The applicant is providing parking on site, so they're actually not utilizing the off-site options. So they are parking this project on site and meeting the requirements for that. And they're using that parking space as an additional buffer. Along the property line here, there is a 4-foot high masonry wall, landscaped shrubs and bushes, as well as a tree-lined buffer as well. The site is a little bit odd in its shape, therefore the depth of it kind of ranges from 90 feet to about 120 feet. Again, the overall structure and the massing is not disruptive to the character. We think this is appropriate for that Main Street feel of North Railroad Avenue that we're trying to achieve within the district. Again, building separation is still provided as 23.5 feet, so they're 1.5 feet short. And with those extra buffers, the parking, the landscaping, we feel like that encroachment will not be noticed with the egress stair. Same conditions, particular conditions exist within the lot depth. It's the minimum request necessary to make this operation work. They have worked with staff to reduce the request. And we believe this will not be detrimental to the public welfare nor the overall Nora district. Staff supports that the project complies with all 8 of the variance review standards. Mailers, again, were sent out, no comments. And we do recommend approval, that it meets all 10 of the variance standards. There is no condition imposed on this particular request. And the final case for Nora is DAC 2214. This is the 11th Street parking lot. So this project is bounded by Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard, Spruce Avenue, 11th Street, and the FEC right-of-way. This is within our Nora 2 to 20 incentive district. So this area does permit 20 stories or 305 feet, and it does have a 5.5 FAR. At this time, the applicant is requesting to install a temporary surface parking lot that is permitted by code. And the only reason this is coming before you for special review is due to the size of the lot exceeding the 50,000. Normally, I would have brought this to you just to approve the off-site parking requirement, the location, the number of off-site spaces. But because of the square footage, it does also trigger a special review. So it does comply with the 4 standards of special review. Going into the first one, building scale and mass are compatible. There is no proposal for a new structure on this site. As you can see, there is a 25,000 square foot warehouse or garage building. And due to our code provisions, B here, they cannot demolish existing structures to make surface parking, so this structure does have to remain on site. And the applicant will be renovating it or utilizing it for storage purposes or otherwise. Circulation and traffic flow, there is a single entry ingress and egress from 11th Street down here. This parking space is parking 160 spaces total. And because they are requesting to utilize valet parking operations, similar to the 120 Dixie case, we're imposing a condition that we have just a operations parking plan in place with, for city traffic engineering and staff to review and confirm. The pedestrian realm does see improvements. They are meeting our landscape requirements for surface parking as well as streetscape requirements. So the entire perimeter of the project will be lined with street trees, shrubs to screen the parking uses, and other green space areas internal to the site with terminal islands and shade trees as well. There is sidewalks also around the perimeter of the project. Bicycle parking, because multiple projects are fulfilling their parking requirements off-site, we ask a condition that each of those individual sites meets their bicycle parking on-site. So there won't be a single bicycle rack or continuous rack here at this parking lot. It'll be located at each of those individual properties that are satisfying their parking. Going into building design, again, it's not really applicable to this as there's no new structure. This is the existing warehouse that'll be renovated and utilized for storage. In the public realm, currently these lots in the north here are entirely vacant, landscaped, with whatever is growing there, and gravel and sparsely asphalted sections. So this, while it doesn't promote an active use, it does allow for the rest of the district to continue its operations and grow until more projects come online where maybe this parking will be mitigated internally to those projects. So we do get a benefit of having a centrally located parking space that satisfies the district. Regarding the city alley and right-of-way that bisects the lot, so there is a 14-foot or 15-foot alleyway that is city-owned. The applicant initially submitted an application to abandon this alleyway as a part of the proposal. City staff, the CRA, engineering, and planning did not want to fully go through with this abandonment process Not quite yet, as we see an opportunity to propose a potential land swap instead. Palm Beach County is currently working on redesigning the Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard Bridge, and where they will expand the bridge to its maximum extent of the right-of-way. So they'll make it wider. They're adding more sidewalks on either side of the bridge. And with that, it is anticipated that they'll need about a 10-foot easement for maintenance and access on either side of that bridge. So the city would like to reserve the option of potentially swapping the 15-foot alley for that 10-foot easement on the northern end of their the Nora property. Discussions with the applicant and city are ongoing. It's not quite clear yet what avenue we are going to take. There has been discussions if it's a temporary construction easement, a temporary use easement, or we do go through with the alley abandonment. Whatever avenue is determined, you would either go in front of the board again here or city commission for final approval. But we want to allow them to at least build this parking lot, and then within the future, whenever the site develops, it'll be revisited with that easement and the bridge and what the final outcome is for this land here. Mailer and notices have been sent. No comments have been received. Planning staff does recommend approval, that it meets all the conditions of section 9454B2. We do have 5 separate conditions on this. The first one is just that because of the ambiguity of what will happen with the alleyway, at this time we are asking that prior to final site plan approval, we have just a agreed upon set of civil, landscape, and architectural drawings for the parking lot, and that prior to the issuance of building permits, that any necessary easements or agreements to occupy that land are completed and recorded by the city. The second one is prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy on the projects that utilize the 11th Street parking lot as their required parking, that the parking lot must be fully constructed and built before we can issue CO on those individual projects. So we want to make sure that they're parked before they are final and occupied. The third condition is, again, due to the valet operations, we are asking that city planning staff and engineering staff receive a parking operations and valet service plan. The fourth condition is that each of these individual projects that are utilizing the 11th Street lot for their required parking fulfill their required bicycle parking on site. And at the fifth recommendation is, in the future, when this site is developed and it is converted from a temporary parking lot to a full-scale development, we just ask that the required parking is addressed. So either through their building plans or application at that time for the new structure, or otherwise, that we make sure that these 160 required spaces are being met elsewhere within the district. And again, that may require DAC approval to approve the location and number of spaces, should that change. Staff recommends approval for DAC case 2221 with those 5 conditions. And if there are any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
All right, thanks, Chris. Anyone have any questions immediately?
Yeah, I just have a couple. First off, I want to thank the applicant for bringing all these projects and staff and the consultants. This is an enormous amount of work, I think, trying to fit a great project into the context. I just had a couple of comments. One is on the parking lot in the northwest corner. If you could maybe pull that slide up. Yep. So I think, and my recollections before, and I know this is temporary, but just sort of the ease of pedestrian access, getting from your car to the restaurant or wherever. So I see here, like, if you're in the middle of the parking lot, I guess you have no choice, but you're just going to go to the vehicular entry egress spot to get out of the parking lot. But along the east side of the parking lot and along the south, you have the ability to put the sidewalk adjacent to your parking spot so you don't have to cut through landscaping, I guess, if that's the intent, or walk through the incoming traffic lane to get out of that parking lot. So if I may suggest a flip-flop of basically you put the sidewalk adjacent to your parking and you make it flush, I think, which is consistent with the design guidelines throughout NORA, to have an ease of universal design and not have curbs that are all popping up. But if that could be considered, I think that would enable pedestrian circulation to go from a car to a park or a sidewalk right away versus walking through a parking lot. So if that could be considered, that would be great. The second comment I had was for the streetscape. It was the first slide that showed the multiple bay building with, I think, 4 palm trees in it. If you can bring that one up and we can discuss.
So you're all going to have, this is the city attorney's office, you're going to have to vote on each of these individually. So when you ask questions, it would be good if you could reference the item number that you're asking questions about so that the record will be clear what the discussion is in regard to.
Great point.
Okay, I think it was the first one. And it was that computer rendering, I think, of the elevation of the east facade that sort of... Yep, that one right there. Oh. Yep, there it is. Thank you. So I just, challenge you on this one a little bit, I guess, in terms of the design and what's being asked. And just having been to the ASLA conference and all the sort of, streetscape presentations and temperature presentations, frankly, I look at this slide and I'm just sort of a little bit disappointed, because when I think about NORA and I think about streetscapes and I think about great streets anywhere, whether it be Clematis Street, Atlantic Avenue, South Beach, there's shade, there's streetscape cover. Here, I'd be hard pressed to see this in reality anywhere because it's so hot. And it's just, maybe I don't understand if the intent is that street furniture is going to come and you're going to have big giant canopies and people can be under that shade and enjoy, lunch or drinks or whatever. But right now, the only way this space looks like it would work, especially when you're asking for a reduction of landscaping, would be after sunset when that building is casting a shadow over these seating spaces. So that's just sort of the reaction I had. And I think the quickest fixes, and instead of putting skinny palms that don't provide any kind of true long-term shade, maybe consider a couple of oak trees that might be likewise down the street that ultimately will be big, won't block signage, won't block architecture, but provides that microclimate, provides that shade that I think the streetscape needs, in addition to the tenants, whatever, in that spaces. So I think the concept was that maybe you're asking for a variance here for whatever relief in landscaping to put it elsewhere. And I don't have the streetscape memorized in terms of the downtown, if there's a tree every 25 feet or whatever that code is. But to me, if you want to have a nice, vibrant streetscape, if you're just looking at this section as a microcosm, to me, it's going to be a barren, hot walk if you're going to go from one side to the other. And that experience is the antithesis of, I think, where the design is going of this beautiful streetscape, that you can enjoy the urban detail, enjoy the streetscape, enjoy the canopy over your head. So I think that's just the other comment I had that maybe you can address, or please.
You're just looking for shade trees in lieu of the
Thank you
palm
very
trees.
much. Again, Jexy Chamber. I don't believe the slide of those palm trees are the actual final configuration. I apologize about that. There will be shaded trees. And that was the reason why this case 2218, one of the the variance requests is to extend the canopy. So yes, the canopy will be provided as a shade area. So the seating area will be under the canopy itself.
But I guess unless you're there at noon or later, you're not going to have any shade. right? Because if your canopy's over the building and you're sitting there, if you're there at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, it's just going to be hot, hot east sun on
Again,
that sign.
I believe the plant material showing on the slides, and I apologize, it's not palm trees, it's actually shade trees. I think we can confirm that if it's something that you guys want us
That's a
to
quick
look
fix.
at.
If it could be shade trees, I think the comment goes away, and I think you'll have a
Absolutely. I don't think
streetscape that will ultimately
that will be an issue. Absolutely, we can confirm that. If it's not on the landscape currently, we will be able to add them.
Super.
Okay.
Yep.
Good catch.
Thank you.
I agree.
And I'll touch on that point too. Within the approved streetscape, the face of the city design that we had for North Railroad Avenue, we did have shade trees. They are planted at every 30 feet, so the 30-foot intervals, the standard that is within downtown.
Okay.
So again, this might be just a false representation with the rendering, but certainly the shade trees are a requirement and provided within the streetscape.
That's great. Thank you.
Any others?
May
Yep, that's it for me.
Okay.
May I
Yeah,
add to
anyone?
that? So if we have shade trees, if you could have the retaining walls around, or masonry walls or retaining walls around those shade trees, that might also provide the minimum seatings that are not there now. So that might also minimize the variance on the minimum seating. Because they're not seats per se, and they're not chairs or benches, but the retaining walls, if you make them wide enough, that could function also as a minimum seating.
Yeah, and again, this kind of goes to the streetscape that was approved for North Railroad Avenue. There is, within that face of the city approval that went to commission, there are decorative street furniture items, and one of those would be different sculptural seating and things like that. So there is seating elements that are included within the streetscape portion, internal to this site and internal to this request for their open space. Necessarily, there isn't fixed seating. There would be seating through the tenants and their dining establishment. But in the streetscape itself, there should be streetscape furniture and benches included as part of that approval.
Great. Super.
Just really
Go
quick
ahead, Steve.
If I may, I also want to add the tree shades actually are up against the roadway. So if we add that retaining wall, then we'll be people sitting right next to the roadways, which is not
I
safe.
think she's probably maybe back in where your
Yep.
low hedges are.
I'm sorry?
She's probably referring to the hedge area.
Yep, that's correct.
So yeah,
That's
you can-
correct.
I'm sure you can study that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Just really quick question for staff regarding case numbers, the three variance cases, 2218, 2223, and 2217. So if these three properties were all in compliance with code, we wouldn't be here today. We're just reviewing the variances. There's no level of site plan review that DAC's reviewing. It's just the variances. Okay, thanks.
Exactly. Just a quick question on case 2214. What's the material of the parking, the surface lot for applicant?
Asphalt.
That's fine.
Asphalt.
Okay. Any idea on the timing, or is that just up in the air, whether it's a year or 2 years, or it's all pending the potential development of that site?
The condition of one of the condition of approval is that have to be built prior to any CO of any of the structures that will be parked in.
But for the duration of the surface lot, is there a sunset, or is there?
I believe the minimum is 5 years. Yeah, within 5 years.
I mean, Rick Green, you probably remember, what was the case we looked at years ago over in City Place? It was a similar situation where we approved a surface lot. And
Rick Green, Development Services
Yeah.
Director. It was the lot that is currently occupied by 360
Right, right.
Rosemary.
Did we
That
learn
was
anything
supposed to
from?
be a one-year parking lot. It ended up being 4 or 5 years. As a result, we amended, if you remember, some provisions of our zoning code to prevent that from happening again. Related did come in with some temporary request for temporary parking, and because of that case, we're very cognizant of what we're going to allow. So now we have a phasing plan. If you remember I don't know if you saw the Macy's, but the planning board saw the Macy's site, which is now under construction. But when that was a vacant lot, we had time provisions in there that if a certain amount of time passed, then they had to landscape it. They had to provide benches, I believe if it was after 18 months. And it was a progressive schedule that the longer it remained as a parking lot or open space, they had to make some improvements to the lot.
Yeah, I only bring that up because I'm sure you guys learned from it. Sounds like you're on top of it. Thank you. And then back on the trees, are you, on the parking lot, are you relocating any existing trees for or that are there? The relocation.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know if it makes any sense on these temporary lots to put trees in pots that you could relocate easily later, but I'll let you guys figure out your logistics.
I believe
But,
that is the case.
Yeah, okay,
Correct.
awesome. I don't have any questions. Any comments from anyone in the public on this case? Any of these 4 cases? Okay.
I have one more comment, please.
Oh, well, okay, we'll close out public discussion then and continue questions from, go ahead, Kim.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
On the land swap, on the Palm Beach Lake Bridge expansion, I know it's primarily a traffic issue. They're gonna expand it for traffic. But I guess this comment is for both, for the design, for the applicant and for staff. You know, if you could please kind of look ahead of time and maybe, you know, the space under the bridge. I imagine right now it's not being used for anything. So that could be a great opportunity for future public park or public arts, similar to the Miami, the Underline Park. That would be a fantastic opportunities to maximize, to bring it to the best and highest use. Yeah.
On the Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard Bridge, planning has not received a formal design or submittal on behalf of the county for that bridge. City CRA staff is looking at actually ways to program the underside of that bridge and to enhance that area there. But we have yet to see a final schematic drawing of how this bridge will be, if it's a continuous wall, if there's still the gap underneath it, anything like that. So upon review of that we'll take that into consideration, but I know CRA is looking into that.
Okay, any other questions or comments, or anyone want to formulate a motion?
Look, just a couple of quick comments. Obviously commend staff and the applicant for working through these. We all know the vision for this area, and there's a lot to negotiate through the codes when you're talking about these redevelopment scenarios. So, I'm sure this probably isn't the last of some variances we'll see on other properties as well. But in my opinion, these are the circumstances where you're working with existing site constraints, difficult properties, strange configurations. This is where variances really come into play to produce good quality outcomes that align with the vision. So I commend both staff and the applicant on what they've done. There's a lot in here, a lot to digest, but I think you've all done an excellent job.
Yeah, I agree. The only comments were, you had some comments on the one, but, so if we're ready, motion, I think there are just a couple of conditions on a few cases. But.
Yeah, I just wanted to return to the last one with the parking lot, the DAC case,
14.
The
2014.
2014. Just in terms of that sidewalk comment, is the applicant amenable to shifting the sidewalk to best suit the pedestrians?
Where is it you want it on, the east side?
Basically the east and the south, so that you can go
There
from
is
your car
already-
directly to the parking, or to the...
I believe we utilizing the ADA parking spaces as part of the connection as well, but you're talking on the east side or the south side?
Well, it's kind of the east and the south, I guess. So right now, if you are in the parking lot and you go south, you would walk in the handicap aisle, and then I guess that would have to connect to the sidewalk, and then you would go. If you have the sidewalk adjacent to that curb, then not only the handicapped people, but any other people on that edge can go right on the sidewalk. Likewise, on the east side, that entire length of parking on the east side is against landscaping, and then 5 feet away there's a sidewalk. So if you park there, you're going to have to cut through the landscaping to get to the sidewalk. Or if you flip-flop that sidewalk and landscaping, you can go from your car to the sidewalk and then walk straight down.
So maybe winding one of the landscape pilot to add a pedestrian connection all the way to Space Avenue, would that work?
Well, I think on the south side, you basically have 5 feet of green next to your asphalt, and then you have the 5-foot sidewalk. If you just flip-flop that, so your 5-foot sidewalk is adjacent to...
in that term, that one will, I don't see any issue with the south side. I'm talking about on the east side. Well, just winding one of the islands to add some pedestrian connection all the way to Spruce Avenue, would that work? Or what would you propose on the east side?
My suggestion would be to put the sidewalk adjacent to your curb so that you could walk from your car, out of your car, and step directly onto the sidewalk.
That will remove the landscape perimeter. Will that?
It would just flip-flop it, I think, right? So basically, instead of green right next to the car, it's sidewalk right next to your car, which makes the most sense, right? To walk on the sidewalk, and then the green is just flip-flopped. You're not losing anything, you're just flip-flopping your sidewalk.
So that,
That's an existing sidewalk, so you want it just to cut into the sidewalk, create a landscape, and then kind of jog it into the parking lot?
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that was existing. I guess maybe if your suggestion is you take one of those spots and
Yes.
you create a pedestrian
correct.
walk to just get to the sidewalk, perhaps that's the best way.
No problem, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
so is that for both the south and the east side, or just?
Well, the south has 4 handicap
Yeah, be good to
access
get
ways,
direct.
so I think that you could use those to get to the
Yep.
sidewalk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, good idea. Good idea. Anything else? Okay, who's up for it?
I'll
Four
take
long
it.
ones.
Feel the eyes looking at me. So just from the city attorney, I'm assuming I need to read. There's going to be a lot of talking. Thankfully, some people in the audience can understand me. I need to read the entire motion with all proposed conditions.
Case by case. Yep, yep.
And, spell out any conditions.
Yeah, that's fine, no problems.
And if there are several requested variances in that item, you just want to say, I vote to approve one, because I think there are 5 in the very first one, so I vote to approve 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or all of them, or however you want.
Okay, no problems. That's fine. Got it. All right. So I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the variance request included in DAC case number 2218 as follows. Variance requests numbers 1 through 5. The variance approval is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division staff report dated August 9th, 2023, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the downtown master plan and the comprehensive plan of the city of West Palm Beach. I think I need to go on a little bit more here. I've just lost my page. Just 1 second. Sorry. The following condition is recommended for the approval of variances numbers 1 through 5. 1, when located along the ground level, the space is provided to satisfy the private open space requirement shall remain unencumbered and accessible to the general public at all times. Let me just finish reading it, sorry. For some reason, I'm just losing on my page here. Motion is made based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The Downtown Action Committee hereby makes findings of fact that the variances requested satisfy all of the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 9438D6 and Section 9454D2. That's my motion.
Motion, was this the one with the shade trees did you want to add something to that? Just the consideration for the comments made about the shade
Okay,
trees?
and if in granting this motion, the applicant shall ensure that the plantings along the right-of-way reflect the shade trees in the Nora vision plan.
All right, that sounds perfect. A motion, is there a second?
Second?
Motion to second, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Next one.
All right, thanks, Chris.
23.
Regarding DAC case 22-23, I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the variance requests included as follows. 1, variance, sorry, how many variance requests are there on this one? 2. Variance requests 1 and 2, as listed in the staff report. This one didn't have any additional conditions other than what's in the report. with the following condition as recommended by staff. Number one, when located up along the ground level, the spaces provided to satisfy the private open space requirement shall remain unencumbered and accessible to the general public at all times. These variance approvals are made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division Staff Report dated August 9th, 2023, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the Downtown Master Plan and the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, can constitute a preponderance of competent, substantial evidence. The Downtown Action Committee hereby makes findings of fact that the variances requested satisfy all of the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-38D6 and Section 94-54D2.
Okay. All right. Motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We'll move on to 2217.
All right, regarding Downtown Action Committee case number 22-17, I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the variance request as listed in the staff report. There are no proposed conditions with this application. The variance approval is made conditional upon the restrictions, stipulations and/or safeguards listed in the Planning Division Staff Report dated August 9th, 2023, that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the zoning code and consistent with the Downtown Master Plan and Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach. This motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the application submitted, which constitute competent and substantial evidence that the standards in Section 94-38D6 and Section 94-54D2 have been met.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second?
Motion, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And now 2214.
Regarding DAC case number 22-14, I move the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review of DAC case 22-14 as listed in the staff report dated August 9th, 23, with conditions 1 through 5, with additional condition 6 requiring widening of at least one landscape island on the east side of the property to provide a pedestrian connection to the existing sidewalk on Spruce Street. So that will be additional condition 6. The motion is based upon a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing, along with the application submitted, constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that special review case requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Section 94-52B2.
Okay, well done. Motion, is there a second?
Second?
Second. Motion, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it. Okay. And let the record show Brian's back. All right, moving forward, code revision case in administrative appeals, unfinished business, new business. Okay, under other business, we have the clarification of Transit Village final order. Chris, you doing that one, or is the applicant?
Yeah, I'll start it off
Yeah,
and
just
then
lead us
the
off, yep.
applicant, yeah. So within the original site plan approval of Transit Village, that case 1503, that was signed on October 7th of 2015, there was a DAC final order condition relating to off-site improvements in relation to traffic. The condition was that traffic improvements required in numerals 5, 6, and 7 of Exhibit D of the agreement for purchase and sale between the Transit Village LLC and Palm Beach County dated August 12, 2015, and included in attachment 1 to this order shall be met. On September 14th, 2023, or actually it should be 2022, Downtown Action Committee approved DAC case 2205 for the new formal site plan of the Transit Village project. The final DAC order 2205 was signed and presented to the applicant on February 24th of this year, and the final site plan approval letter was also issued in February. The DAC issued final order for last year's 2205 was limited to only on-site construction and did not release the off-site approval conditions of DAC case 1503. Both the city and the applicant agree that the DAC case 1503 condition remains active. Staff is just seeking clarification that the off-site condition contained in the original DAC final order dated August 12, 2015 for case DAC 1503 remains a condition of approval, and it is DAC's intent that the condition be included in the staff's final site plan approval letter that we issued last year for DAC 2205. If there's any additions.
Good morning, Board. Thank you for your service. Kimberly Rothenberg, City Attorney for the City of West Palm Beach. I was requested to look at both of these case numbers and to make a determination as to whether or not your subsequent approval, released or otherwise, removed the conditions for the off-site approval. I am of the legal opinion that that condition still remains, but there is a question for clarification purposes whether or not it does, and because it's your action, we are seeking your clarification that in fact that condition remains. The parties both agree, and Mr. Seymour will address you as well.
Okay, thank you.
You can ignore my card now.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the record, Brian Seymour on behalf of Transit Village. The short version is exactly what Kimberly said. It was never intended these non-site improvements would ever not be done. There's just been a question raised. We all, Kimberly and I talked, we think legally it was done, it was incorporated. By putting it into certainly the development order, which is the staff letter, it means no more confusion. No one would ever have to worry about it. So if you all would agree, we'll make sure that all the documents get updated with the condition that Chris identified, and we'll be moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Seymour, this is just to put it back in writing into the development order, or back into the order, even though we all understand that it was required.
It was always sort of there.
Right.
It's just stating it explicitly in that particular document.
Right.
Yes.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Any comments from anyone in the audience? Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll close public discussion on this case. Take any other questions of the board for staff or the applicant? Seems fairly straightforward.
Yep.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. I move to clarify that the final order entered in case number DAC 22-05 does not release condition number 1 of DAC case number 15-03, and that it is DAC's intent that the condition be included in staff's final site plan approval letter issued for case number 22-05.
Second.
Okay, motion, there's a second also. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thanks for taking time to do that.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Did anyone, we kind of went over unfinished or other business. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up at today's meeting?
Just one thing, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I have a conflict for the next 3 meetings, which is unavoidable and means I won't be able to make these meetings. I've consulted staff. According to the rules of the Downtown Action Committee, I need the approval of the chair to miss that number of consecutive meetings, so I'm seeking your approval. I don't know if you necessarily need to make the decision right now, but I'm asking for that request, and if it can be granted, great. Unfortunately, it's just something I can't avoid, this conflict. So.
It's a legitimate excuse. It's okay, I mean, as long as you come back.
Take it to a vote.
So that's fine.
Yes.
That's good by me. And in addition, I know, Mr. Green, we talked about potentially finding another alternate in case we get in situations in the summer, especially with quorum. So
Yes,
whenever that
we've
happens.
spoken to Jack Frost, who
Yeah.
coordinates all the appointments, and we had the same issue on a couple other boards as
Okay.
well, so we'll follow
All
through.
right, so noted. Thanks. Does anyone else have any other items for discussion today?
I just had one quick item, just a suggestion in the future, and again, it's kind of coming from the landscape architect, street guy. Can there be one rendering in the applications that basically puts you in the sidewalk in front of the building, so we understand what's next to the building, what's on the, because I think to put you really in the space, and I appreciate all the, quote unquote helicopter renderings, but that's not where we experience our city, So if just one of those in the future can be part of the applications, put you right in a space, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Also, even some larger scale hardscape landscape plans of the important areas of the entrances and the plazas, et cetera. It's better to visualize and understand the materials and the relationships.
Thank you.
I agree.
Great.
Anything else? Okay. All right, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everyone, for being present.